Hi, this is international psychic medium Susan Schueler. Welcome to my show, Midlife Conversations. Today on our show, joining us all the way from England is Clair Merryweather. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Susan.
So nice that you're joining us. Now, you're a psychic medium, and you and I met years ago at Arthur Findlay College in England, where we both studied pretty extensively. Now, I'm just going to jump in and let the audience know if they don't know what Arthur Findlay is. It's probably one of the most world-renowned schools for spiritual development, and it's a pretty special place to go to. And like I said, I know the two of us have been going there for years. So I have to ask you, being a psychic medium, I know that you didn't always step into your spirituality in the same way that you do now. So if I can ask, how did you kind of have your spiritual awakening?
Well, it was a real shock to me. And as I look back now, I meet people who explain that as a child, they had always knew that they were psychic, they always knew that they were mediumistic. And I'll be quite honest, that really wasn't what happened for me. I remember an experience when I was 3, having an imaginary friend that I really believed everyone could see as I could see her. And it was quite a moment really, because I remember sitting at home and I remember where I was sitting and I was talking to her, and I remember my mum coming into the room and saying, well, who are you talking to? And that was quite, and it took me years to actually remember that and understand what that was. I think I maybe shut it all down, and I'll be honest, I was in my late 30s. I had 3 young children. I was a busy working mum, and I really was thrown into this. I can only think it was absolutely meant to happen. And I'd moved into a brand new home. And what started to happen for me was that at night I would be visited by people that I could see and hear. Um, I would actually close my eyes to go to sleep. So ordinarily, when we close our eyes, we see blackness and we go to sleep, don't we?
Right.
And suddenly, I was aware of maybe 1, 2, or 3 people's faces very, very clearly speaking to me. And I'll be honest, for quite a while, it bothered me. I didn't understand that I was a medium. And I had to, through a period of a year, had to reach out for help to try and understand why I was seeing these things. And also, I always remember that when they'd come in the bedroom that I was in, I may have the telly on, and I'd have physical raps and taps and knocks in the room. The telly would turn itself over and over. And, it was almost quite scary for me at first. I actually took the route initially to wonder if psychologically I had a problem. And I was a little scared. And I actually went to a doctor to explain that I was tired and I couldn't sleep at night. And I always remember, and I'm forever going to be grateful to the lovely Sikh doctor that I saw, because I really thought he's going to suggest, some sort of therapy or help or psychiatric help. And he actually listened to me, and he looked at me and he said, I think you need to reach for the help of someone who is a medium.
Oh, wow, that's outstanding. I can't believe that really surprises me because I just hear so many people get put on medication and they get put into therapy and
Mhm. I
wow.
was very, very lucky, and as a result, there was a local spiritual church which wasn't far from my home, and I very, very nervously, and I mean nervously, walked in because I had no clue what to expect. And thank goodness that I did, because I told them what was happening, and for them, they normalized it.
Absolutely.
It was really okay. They suggested that I come for spiritual healing, which they run at the church each week, but also that I would join the development circle as well. And I must say, I found nothing but kindness and understanding there, and a settling within myself that I wasn't actually mad.
Mhm.
I didn't have a great deal of thought of what I would do with my gift. I just knew that I had to understand it. And as a result, very quickly, all the phenomena started to settle around me. And now I have this almost a contract with the spirit world, as in my sleep time is my sleep time, I'm not, I don't have the spirit world coming towards me when I'm, wanting to rest.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that this also, when you were doing all of these things, you actually had another business going, didn't you? You were trying to start your own business, right?
Yeah, in actual fact, as a result of almost a year of phenomena which I experienced within the new house I was in, at that time, for a while, I wondered, is it because of the house? No, it was me. Uh, but in actual fact, and my husband's, and I'd almost got upset living there. And my husband suggested that we would buy a house in the town centre, and lo and behold, one came up for sale that he liked. And my house, which I'm currently in now, is a semi-commercial property. So there was a business premises, like a shop, or I call it my studio, downstairs, and then like a house which is connected through a door to my home. So I just went with the idea. It wasn't really my idea. My husband suggested it. I thought, well, I've been off work for a few years, focusing on looking after the children. Yes, I'm going to run a coffee shop. It was my husband's idea. I had no experience whatsoever. I had never managed staff or worked for myself. And yet something says, I've always had something within me, and I've lived my life like this, where someone gives me an opportunity, even if I question it, I've always said yes. I've always said yes. And actually, it's never really done me wrong. Even if I make a mistake, it then leads on to something that I needed to learn, or a direction that I needed to go in. So I came here, and I'm currently seated in the same place that was the coffee shop. And I ran this coffee shop for a year. And it was quite hard because I had three young children to look after, and it was 7 days a week, pretty much, 7 days a week. And I really didn't enjoy it. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I did it, I made it work. But financially, it was really, really hard. And after a period of a year, I was paying my staff, I was reinvesting in stock for the business, but I really wasn't making any profit for myself. And I always remember the last few weeks before I made a decision to close, I was literally paying wages on credit cards. I was literally getting into debt. And I thought, Claire, you cannot continue on like this. Best will in the world, you can't. And I was really devastated, because I thought, what are you going to do? Because you've got a house with a business underneath that's now going to be vacant
Mhm.
because you failed to make it work. What are you going to do?
Right. So how long was it then before you started turning it into a psychic center?
Well, it was really quite quick, because I always remember a defining moment one day, because I was umming and ahhing, what should I do? How do I tell my staff they're going to lose their jobs? And I dropped my son off at school, and I always walked through a park, and I always remember this. And as I was walking back through the park, I was so low, the tears were literally, I was crying as I was walking, thinking, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And this is really honestly the truth. I asked that question. And from my heart, literally the center of my being, I've only had the experience once, but it was almost like the voice of God. It was just so profound. And the voice said, Claire, open this for your spiritual work, and people will come to see you. Now, I'm walking along, and it was almost like a boom from my heart. And the strange thing was, I didn't question it. It was so powerful, so true. And yet, as I walked, I was like, oh, okay, is that what I'm supposed to be doing?
But isn't it, the thing I love about this though is you were open to it. You know what I mean? And so many people aren't. And the thing I've noticed is when you're open to it and you're going towards something you're passionate about. Am I correct in saying, I don't know, because we haven't talked about this. Did the people just show up?
Yes, they did.
Love it.
Yes, and with me, confidence has never been my greatest asset. So I honestly feel that had to happen for the spirit world to make and post me into working professionally as
Mhm.
a psychic and a medium and as a spiritual healer. So I had been learning for about 10 years maybe, but it was on and off. I didn't plan to do this professionally, and yet they gave me this space, I know, for a reason. And what was absolutely amazing to me was I didn't even need to change the sign on the door, because I called it Merryweather's, and on the side coffee shop, I literally just had to take the coffee shop sign down.
Oh my God.
So now it's Merryweather's Psychic Studio. And I've always been blessed with work ever since.
No, I love that. And I've always said, I always say with the spirit world, like, I'll build it, you make them come. You know what I mean? And I swear, and
Yes,
mediumship, we
yes.
both studied with Paul Jacobs. And I think Paul always tells kind of a funny story about being an extremely reluctant medium. If anything, I think he always says he tried to prove he wasn't. And honestly, if you're a medium, you can fight it, you can kick, you can scream, but they're coming for you, you know?
Absolutely, Susan. I couldn't agree more. And it's not always easy, because sometimes it's against your mind, but you have to go with your heart and your soul. And I also feel it's quite a courageous path to take in many ways. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I was very blessed that they allowed me to do this. I realize now.
Now, I do know that, and I want to bring this up because I know speaking to a lot of other students that are stepping into their own spirituality. You had several health issues that kind of were challenging for you. If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, very much so. So, my health issues started actually 3 years prior to my awakening, of understanding that I was a medium. And I was, just a busy mum, actually. And I had the most horrific sciatica and back pain, which didn't go. And I then started to develop pains throughout my body, throughout my joints. And I remember feeling absolutely desperate, because there wasn't a day that I wasn't in pain. And this went on for a period of 3 years. And I was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I remember going to have that diagnosis. And I remember sitting there with the doctor, and he said it was incurable. And even then, straight away in my mind, I thought, I'm not going to have this. And I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I really thought, and I'm not going to verbalize it. And furthermore, I'm not going to tell people. I want this to go. And that's how I approached it. But bearing in mind, yes, I had the physical pain I had to overcome. And I went down the normal routes of, what medicine could offer me, which didn't help in any way, shape, or form. And I then realized that I needed to find ways to heal myself. And yeah, I mean, the writing was always on the wall in a way, because I did have spiritual belief. And at that point, I would have reached out to anyone for help. And I eventually found my way to a psychic surgeon and spiritual healer. And I went for a period of 1 whole year. And I even had psychic surgery as well on my back. And I'm now completely healed.
Oh, I
Uh,
love that. And
mhm.
I just want to interject here a second, Claire. A lot of us who are healers, we do have, I can't tell you, okay, I'm just going to say this, the only people I personally know who have fibromyalgia are spiritually psychic and things like that. It's almost like you take these things on.
Yes.
Everybody that I've ever spoken with about it just says it's the most excruciating pain.
Yeah, it was totally debilitating. I always remember I went on holiday with my children. I was in Turkey, and again, it was a defining moment for me, because I was walking with my son Lewis, who's now 23, but he was a lot younger then. And I always remember him looking up at me and saying, Mum, because I was walking, I was in terrible pain. I must have been moaning that I was in pain. And Lewis looked at me and he said, Mum, do you think you'll end up in a wheelchair?
Oh,
And I looked at him and I thought, Claire, you've got to find the way through this. You can't have your children worrying for you. You need to find the way. I must say, I also looked into nutrition. I also realized the benefits of exercising even through the pain.
mhm,
Also, the benefit of meditation and taking the mind into a place of no thought,
mhm.
sitting in the love of the soul, if you like, the love of the great universe around you, and also positive thought, and not to become a victim of it, actually. I nearly got there, but I was like, no, come on, you can get through this. And then it was almost like it just happened over a period of time. And I look back now, and maybe a year went, and suddenly I'd forgotten about the pain. And I suddenly was like, oh, now you can do other things without hurting every single day, because, pain on a daily basis is extremely debilitating.
Right, right. Now, also, so as you're going through all of this spiritual evolution, I just want to explain to people that doesn't mean that everything's all fairies, lollipops, and unicorns for us, because it's totally not. And I want to sort of switch gears at this point and talk about your mom. Because how much later was mom diagnosed after this happened?
Oh gosh, this must have been a good 6 years later.
Okay,
Uh,
so just explain to us like what happened.
yeah, so I'm working, as a full-time medium at this point, and as a spiritual healer and as a psychic, etc. And just, plodding through life. Life's never easy. There's always something, isn't there? But this was a biggie for me. And I always remember the one day, I explain it. My mom was a very strong, resilient lady, absolute rock of the family. For me, my mom was unbreakable. There was nothing ever going to happen. Actually, getting a little bit emotional. Never going to happen to my mom. She was just too strong, and
Mhm.
we all needed her, and the whole family revolved around my mom. And she had very quickly become unwell, and we couldn't understand what the problem was, and we thought at the time it might be dementia, but it came on so very, very quickly.
And how
uh,
old was she at this point?
my mum was 69.
Oh, so she's young.
Yeah. And my mum was so smart, every single way. Her behavior changed. My dad was doing his best to try and understand and get the help they needed, and no one gave a diagnosis at that point. And I always remember the one day when my dad said, Mum's that bad, I'm going to take her down to, accident and emergency. I literally cannot let this carry on anymore. And I said, okay, Dad, I'll meet you down there. And there was a coffee shop at the end of my street. And I went with my husband, and it was really strange. I sat there and I didn't know anything at the time. And a butterfly came in and literally flew around me and actually landed and stayed on the window where I was sitting. And I know you might think, how do I get this from this? But I just knew that my mum was going to pass to the spirit world. For me, the butterflies are carriers of the soul, you know. And I looked at my husband and I said, there's something wrong. I think my mum's going to die. And Steve says, no, no. In actual fact, in memory of my mum, I have this um, tattoo
Oh, oh, that's
of,
beautiful.
of the same butterfly
Yeah, that's beautiful.
across there. And that talks to me of transformation through faith. So this is for my mum. And then we went to the hospital, and within 4 hours, they were amazing. They told us that mum was so ill with cancer that had spread from the lungs to the brain and throughout the body, that there really was absolutely nothing that could be done.
Oh my gosh. And then how long was she ill for?
My mum passed within 14 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. So that doesn't give you any time to prepare to and I don't know if being able to prepare or being in shock, I don't know what's if there's a better, I really don't know. So I have
Oh,
to ask you this. Had you experienced a lot of death prior to your mom's passing?
I had, but in all honesty, Susan, I call myself lucky in the way that this was my first, enormous loss. I
Right.
had all of my grandparents that had gone to the spirit world. I'd had known certain people where I went to their funerals and paid my respects. But
So,
emotionally, I was okay, but this was tough.
and people might think, oh, you're a medium, it's not that big of a deal, or it's not that hard for you because you understand how the spirit world is. Can you just explain a little bit like how this might have changed the way that you sort of viewed your faith?
Yeah, very, very much so. So I stayed by my mum's side for those 14 weeks, knowing that she was going to die. And my mum was a very psychic herself, but had never actually used a gift in the way that I do to work to read people. So me and my mum both knew where she was going. And my mum's strength and dignity was absolutely awe-inspiring, actually.
Mm.
She never moaned. She never moaned. And I had the absolute privilege of being with my mum when she passed to the spirit world. And I held her hand, and actually it was a beautiful moment. And as much as I wanted my mum so desperately to stay on the earth, and so much for my father because they've been married for 50 years,
Oh my gosh.
I knew that mum had suffered so deep and so hard at that point. She needed to be released into the light, to be closer to God, to the angels, whatever way people want to verbalize that. And I was privileged to be with her. And I remember saying to mum, I'll walk with you as far as I can.
Oh.
And I did. And she looked up and she smiled, and there was this wonderful feeling of light.
Oh.
And yeah, that's when my mum passed. So for me, my faith is everything. And I knew at that point she was being released into a better space.
Mhm.
And yeah,
And I love the way that you say it's a privilege, because I've been with people when they've passed too, and it is a privilege. Some people I know, they call it like a death doula. It's where it's almost
yeah,
like you're helping them cross.
yeah.
So I love the way that you say that. That's almost, it makes me want to cry. It's so poignant.
Well,
Okay, now I also know that after this happens, very short time after this, what happens with your husband?
gosh, well, this actually was um, 4 years later, actually. No, sorry, no, it wasn't. I'm sorry, it was two. And yeah, my husband, gosh, he's a very strong, very fit. He's into his fitness, he eats well, he's very positive. And suddenly he developed just a little lump that this looked like a spot on his nose. And it started to grow and grow and grow and become more visible. And we better get it checked. So we did. And over a period of 5 long months, I'm going to say, after 4 consultants, after going to the hospital, accident and emergency twice, to be told there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong. And as a healer, I realized really that there was.
Mhm.
And um, eventually it was me after a long, long fight. I'm going to be honest with you. I would send emails. I would say, I feel my husband may have cancer. Please, can you help? And eventually we then found, thank goodness, after my battles really for him, um, thank goodness we found a consultant in Birmingham who immediately knew that this was a facial cancer.
Wow.
But unfortunately, it had been left far too long. And they did a biopsy, which they should have done in the early days. And when the biopsy came back, I remember going to the hospital with Steve and sitting in this little hospital room, feeling nervous, to be told that not only was it cancer, that they had to remove um, all this part of his nose.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they gave us, she was wonderful, actually, the surgeon. She says, I want to operate within 24 hours. And if you can imagine that we're sitting there, and not only, yes, we've had the cancer diagnosis in that moment, but then he was going to lose part of his face.
Hmm.
And she says, if you don't want to turn up to the surgery, it's okay, but I'm going to be scheduling you in for tomorrow. And yeah, we went, and they did what they needed to do. But what then happened was, as he came out, at the time they said there was an 80% chance that he could, though, still be cured just by taking it away.
Hmm.
And a few weeks after this awful operation that he'd had, I, as a healer, I believe very strongly in the power of spiritual healing and prayer. And I had my hands on my husband's head and face and neck after the surgery. And as I put my hands onto his neck, I was immediately repulsed one side. And I felt, of course, the dread came in because I'm so close emotionally as well. And I put my hands there, and it had come up in a big lump on his neck.
Wow.
So I then contacted the surgeon again, and I was right, unfortunately.
Now, if I could just interject here for a second, okay? Because as healers, okay, we feel things like this, but even laymen will get inclinations to like something doesn't feel right. And you hear stories and stories of people being told, oh, it's nothing. It's just, you're fine. It's that. I just want to say to our viewers right now, listen to what she's saying, how important it is to follow what you're feeling. If you feel it, it means something. And I'm sure you're living proof of that. So keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Absolutely. And if you know something inside of yourself, I wasn't very popular for quite a long time. But unfortunately, I was right. So if you're not sure, then just keep pressing, keep
Mhm.
asking. And what had then happened is they realized that it'd been given time to spread to his lymph, which was really a whole game changer.
Wow.
It was life threatening. So he then had to have a surgery to have all of his lymph removed, or one side, big effects. So that's where we were at. And then we were told that he needed to give better chances of survival. Chemotherapy and radiotherapy were offered. And we did research it. This wasn't an easy decision that we made. But being facial, the effects were so difficult around the face and neck and salivary glands and etc. Um, my husband very, very briefly made the decision very strongly that he didn't for himself want to choose that route. That was a big decision,
Hmm.
a big decision. However, you would think part of me would be, jumping up and down and going, but you must, we'll do anything to save you. I really didn't feel that. I really, really felt that he was making the right choice.
Hmm.
And as a result, he looks at nutrition as a way to heal himself. He exercises every day. He's very, very positive in his mindset. So nutrition's a big thing. But
Hmm.
also, of course, he's married to a healer. So each week, I allow my inspirers and guides to blend with me very closely, which developed deeper during this healing of my husband. And so far, we are 2 years on. Steve has had scans only a month ago, they were clear.
Oh my gosh.
We have got another 3 years because it was serious. So I pray every day. I pray every day and I heal him every week. And so
Wow.
far, he's very, very well.
That is so powerful, Claire. And I love the fact that you're including the mind, body, spirit, nutrition, all of that, and the attitude. So many people, it's like, I'm not owning this. Even like what you said about your fibromyalgia, I'm not saying this is what I have. I'm not giving it the I am.
Yes.
And to me, it's like you just keep moving forward and keep positive. I think we have so much power that we do not utilize. So that's amazing.
And
So go
I
ahead.
would say as well, which helped us, and it might sound an odd small thing, but the word cancer itself comes with such fear and such negative thoughts around the word cancer. We actually changed the word. We call it candy floss. So, We call it candy floss. And Steve is a big burly bloke, and he'll go, I haven't got the C word, I've got candy floss. Candy floss softens everything. So my Steve has candy floss, which is now gone.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I have to also say this because, like what we were talking about before we started the show today, we are supporters for people as psychics, as mediums, as teachers, but we also have lives. And our lives, as we're listening to the things that have happened to you over the last few years, how were you able to take these really challenging, life altering things that were occurring in your life and still balance the fact that you're doing mediumship with others, you're doing psychic with others, you're doing development with other people, and you're able to put your problems off to the side and focus on theirs? How are you able to do that?
Sheer determination, I'll be honest. And what I realized earlier on, throughout all of this, I have never stopped working.
Mhm.
In actual fact, it made me more determined to reach out to help others through my own pain and suffering. And where I had days where I was incredibly low, I would look forward in a way to doing my readings. And the reason is because when you do a reading as a medium, you enter into what I call a sacred space.
Mhm.
And that sacred space takes away all the worries of the mind. So I would be really, really stressed, and I'd take a few breaths, allow myself to connect with that wonderful energy. And it works. It really does. And within that hour or two or three, however long I was working, I'd have a relief from the thoughts in my mind. My worrying thoughts weren't there. So for me, it was an absolute essential to keep my connection with the spirit world, with my own soul.
Right. And so then how did these experiences, and I know they had to have made you a better psychic and a better medium, how do you feel they've altered the way that you now work with your clients?
Uh, Absolutely, I feel that it deepened my connection to the spirit world, my own suffering, my own pain, without any shadow of a doubt, deepened. And because I had to reach to my faith more, I had to know that there was a loving God, no matter what was happening in my life, that God had me in his hands. I
Mhm.
had to trust, and trust. And also to have these experiences through my readings, for me, I have a better understanding, absolutely, what it is to lose someone that you love so dearly, what
Mhm.
it is to see someone you love suffer.
Yeah.
And one of the big lessons I had to learn for myself was that, Claire, you do not have the control on everything around you. Yes, because as a healer, I wanted to heal it all. I wanted to
Absolutely.
make it all better.
Yeah.
And I realized sometimes you have to realize that. And that acceptance is key, faith is key, and to keep going on, keep breathing, keep stepping forward, do
Mhm.
what you can.
Right.
But also, I think to accept that sometimes you have bad days as well, and that it's okay to cry, it's okay to go for a long walk and have these mad thoughts in your mind and worries. But know then when you come back, maybe you've got to do something better to lift yourself the following day.
Mhm.
So, I can't say that I breeze through it all, not at all, but my spirituality is everything that gets me through this tough stuff.
I love that. Now, I'm just going to put a little plug for you here. If you could just tell us what your website is for the audience in case anybody would like to check you out.
Sure. My website is clairmerryweather.co.uk. It's currently under new reconstruction, so there's a holding page explaining that, and literally within the next few weeks, there's a new site. But my
Wonderful.
contact details are on that. So Claire Merryweather, my name, .co.uk.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to thank you for giving this very heartfelt interview today. This I find very powerful. So thank you for being with us, Claire.
And thank you very, very much for asking me. And it's lovely to connect with you again, Susan.
Of course. And I'd like to thank the audience for joining us today. And once again, this is International Psychic Medium Susan Schueler. And I just want to leave you with the idea that never forget, we are all one. Thank you for joining us.